Vietnam's sister to and May, they are the research scholar of the Department of Buddhist Studies, University of California. Late Lord Buddha ushered his blessing upon us and make this academic session of this international seminar a great success. Thank you.
And good morning to everyone. It is again an honor and privilege for me to join this international conference and to chair the first session of second day of this conference. In this session, which is named after the renowned scholar, Dr. V.C. Law, we have a key presentation out of those three presentations will be made online, and one presentation will be made in person by the presenter. So, at the outset, it is a pleasure for me to invite our first speaker, Dr. D.K. Barla, who will join all of you from University of Hong Kong to make his presentation on the key persistent brain law. What levels of mental studies in the reward industry?
Yeah, I do hear him. Yeah.
Okay. So it's a pleasure for me to invite Dr. D.K. Please.
Hello everyone. Good afternoon to everyone from Hong Kong. And it's a great pleasure for me to be here to present the paper on Buddhism in Bengal, what levels of contemporary Buddhist studies in Bengal. I think I am the first speaker, so and I used to hear the other speakers after my presentation. So as you see here from my presentation, the main discussion topics, as I have chosen, there are three areas that I would like to highlight in my presentation. First of all, my presentation would discuss how Bengali writers, particularly Bengali writers, I would highlight here because not outside Bengal or outside Indian region, because I know that there are some scholars, international scholars, who have studied Buddhism in Bangladesh or Bengal quite broadly, but I would like to mostly focus on Bengali writers, all right? Bengali writers in the sense writers in West Bengal, even in Bangladesh, and researchers write about the history and tradition of Buddhism in Bengal. Then the final paper, actually the final part of my paper, would discuss about a brief overview of several layers of writing and a study that still exist on Bengali Buddhism. Some of the areas that we have not yet focused, but I think we need to address these things in contemporary Buddhist studies. Then my main conclusion or outcome of my presentation would be Buddhist studies can be conducted in a triangle shaped. Triangle shaped means triangle shaped region that is includes Bengal or Bangladesh in today's context, I would say, and Burma or Myanmar in present day is Myanmar and Sri Lanka. Additionally, we can conduct a study into the connections between Bengal and Tibet, as well as Bangladesh current cultural relationship with contemporary Buddhist nations like Thailand. And it will demonstrate that research into Buddhism and Bengali Buddhist culture in a triangle shaped will be beneficial both within and outside of the Bengal regions. Let me give a very brief summary of Buddhism in Bengal or historical aspects of Buddhism in Bengal. As you see here, my slides, I have very briefly has summarized this. You know that historically, although Buddhism originated in India, it gradually declined from most parts of its origin and surviving in few places such as in Bengal, particularly in the division of Chittagong in today's Bangladesh, which would today be geographically categorized as Bangladesh and West Bengal in India. So that means Bengal here, it's a larger term, but in today's context, we could say Bengal is today's Bangladesh and West Bengal. But this Buddhist tradition was a peculiar mixture of Hindu-Buddhist Tantra, all right, and was significantly influenced by Burmese Buddhism in the 19th and 20th century. Since Buddhism was introduced into Bengal, so as we see in the history, it's very mixture culture it was with Hindu-Buddhist Tantra. But somehow in 19th and 20th century, even in today's time, we would see that particularly in Bangladesh, Buddhism is being practiced is Theravada Buddhism, and it's highly influenced by Burmese Buddhism or Myanmar Buddhism. Today, the Buddhists in Bengal are comprised mainly of several ethnic communities such as Barwas, and also I belong to that community, Chakmas, Tangchengas, Marmas, Rakhines, who have different cultures, but practice the same form of Theravada Buddhism. But all of them are practicing the same form of Theravada Buddhism, though we do have different culture, different language, food culture is different. Our, lifestyle is also different, but religion-wise, we are the same. So this is the very brief history of today's Buddhism in Bengal or in Bangladesh. So let me give a very brief summary that the condition of Buddhism in Bengal during Muslim period. As you see here, I have listed out several scholars' opinion, and I'll just go one by one. And as you see, Sharat Chandra Das says, after the destruction of higher Buddhism, I quote here, after the destruction of higher Buddhism by the Mohammedans, all right, Mohammedans in the sense he's referring to Muslim community here, that popular and tantric Buddhism remained in Bengal and was known under the name of Dhamma. And this concept, Dhamma concept, was highly, cited by Haraprasad Shastri, is a Bengali scholar, and in one of his monograph, the title is Discovery of the Remnants of Buddhism in Bengal, which was published in 1895. Based on this monograph, Shastri has composed Discovery of Living Buddhism in Bengal, which describes the Dhamma as the living Buddhism in Bengal, Dhamma. So what is Dhamma here? So as we see, of course, there are many discussions about Dhamma in different contexts. And also I have seen one of the Indian scholars has discussed Dhamma in the sense of emptiness in in different contexts. Of course, I have not mentioned here. And in a different work, Buddhism in Bengal since the Mohammedan conquest, it's by also again Shastri, has portrayed the condition of Buddhism as, I quote here, a sort of corrupt Buddhism mixed up with a variety of Aryan and non-Aryan forms of worship, still obtains in Bengal amongst a very large number of lower class people. He has highlighted lower class, and these lower classes are Doms, Pots, Bagdis in Western and Southern Bengal. So this is actually Haraprasad Shastri's view. But I'd like to give my observation here. He has used the term so-called corrupt Buddhism. That means Buddhism was corrupted in Bengal. I think it's a very strong term, and as I understand that there is no called Buddhism, corrupt Buddhism. Maybe different shapes of Buddhism we can see in different worlds, different parts of the world. And in Bangladesh or in Bengal also there was a form of Buddhism which may not be the original form of Buddhism, but it cannot be corrupt Buddhism. I think, I don't know, maybe scholars who are here, experts who are here, they may give their opinion. And I would say that corrupt Buddhism is a very strong term, and we should not use that kind of word to define Buddhism. But while Shastri proposed the living Buddhism among several lower classes, as I said here, Doms, Pots, Bagdis, but Benimada Baruas, in one of his writings, books in Bengali, he mentioned, and also Professor K.T.S. Sarao, from Delhi University, he has composed a book called The Decline of Buddhism in India, A Fresh Perspective. Quite interesting book, that one. And if you see in that book, they have traced that practice within the living tradition of Buddhism, living community of Buddhism. Living community means they have highlighted mostly Baruas, Chakmas, or Panchangas, whoever, who used to practice a heterogeneous mixture of Hindu, Buddhist, tantric rites and rituals. All right. Though today it is Theravada Buddhism is being practiced in Bengal, but before the arrival of Theravada Buddhism from Myanmar, Hindu, Buddhist, tantric practice were there within the community of even Baruas. Even my foreparents used to practice that kind of so-called heterogeneous mixture of Hindu, Buddhist, tantric rites and rituals. But Buddhism in Bengal during British rule, I just give a very brief summary of it. Then I will go to my main discussion. And as you know that, all of you, in the middle of the 18th century, the British came to India due to their prudence and political will and gradually brought India, including Bengal, under their rule. So I highlight one sentence here in my slide. As you see, the secular attitude of the British almost gradually reawakened Buddhism. I would say because the revival of Buddhism in India, even not only in Bengal, in India, it's started during the British rule, and no one can deny that one. As a result, the Buddhists who were deprived for hundreds of years began to shine in their own glory. Meanwhile, many were able to gain economic freedom by getting jobs under the British Indian government. Many people left Chittagong for work and moved to Kolkata and its surrounding areas. Even Buddhists who are living in today's Calcutta, they actually moved from Chittagong division. So in that sense, they are also quite traditional Buddhist, and we would say that they are living tradition. They have been actually carrying that one. And people we see in Calcutta or Kolkata or surrounding areas of Kolkata who are Buddhist or Baruas, they are from Chittagong, and they are also following the same Theravada tradition as in Bangladesh. As some of these people received the light of some teachings, Buddhists came to know their lost culture, history, and tradition. As a result, they tried to revive Buddhism with their own efforts. So many historians say that the British rule was the time of their salvation for the Buddhists, because the revival of Buddhism started in Bengal during their rule. So why I mention these things here? Because during that period, British period, actually, many excavations have been conducted, and also many Buddhist temples, schools, universities. I mean, even Department of Pali was established in the University of Calcutta during that time. So we can see here, this is a kind of, I mean, a renaissance for Buddhist community. And a number of studies also have been done during that time. So just would like to highlight some of the points here, because though a number of studies have been carried and many books and articles are available in Bengali, even in English, of course, many things are in Bengali, but some of the things I think scholars either missed or they have not yet focused on this kind of areas. So that's what actually my discussion is around. And I have highlighted some of the points. Here, one thing to note among the researchers, as I am I mean, uh, imagine a scholar from Bangladesh, so I noticed this thing and I observed these things. So that's why actually this is from my personal observation I'd like to highlight. One thing to note among the researchers is that those who study Buddhism and culture of the plain areas means actually in Chittagong division, we'd see there are two parts. One is called Chittagong Hill Tracts and one is called plain areas. I mean, people, particularly Baruas, living in that plain areas. So here, those who study Buddhism and culture of the plain areas do not give much importance to Chakma, Marma, Rakhines, or those communities. And on the other hand, Buddhists living in hill tracts or hill Buddhists do not give much importance to the religion and culture of Buddhists in plain areas in their writing or research work. Writing and research work is carried out on religious practices among Buddhists of Bangladesh with a unique attitude. But if we review the history, it is known that in the case of Buddhism, there is a beautiful harmony between the Buddhists in hill tracts and the Buddhists of the plains areas. I mean, if you see history, but there was a very good connection within them. But these things, I think, have not been highlighted, which are important area for research, particularly for young generations, including myself. And some of them are mentioned below, which can be used as research areas by current and prospective writers and students too. So here, one point, after the establishment of the Mahamuni Buddha statue in Pahartali village, Chittagong, Benimada Borwa belongs to that village, so-called Pahartali village. All right. So Buddhism, actually, the revival movement started in that village. When it was in the early 19th century, one monk visited to Arakan, the Mahamuni Buddha statue, which was in Arakan that time. Then he made a replica of that Mahamuni Buddha statue and he established another Buddha statue, very similar form in this village. Okay. And the Buddha statue name given Mahamuni Buddha. All right. And village is also named as Mahamuni village in today's time. And Buddhists of the plains and the hill met at the Mahamuni Mela. Mela means fair here, and perform religious and cultural activities together. They actually perform all these things together. So researchers how the cultural exchange between the Buddhists of the plains and the hills has been and is happening. This kind of things also I think in today's Bengali writers or scholars can focus on. Then since the revival of Theravada Buddhism in Bengal, what kind of connection there was with Pahartali and Burma can be identified and researched. Third point, before the introduction of Theravada Buddhism in Bangladesh, what kind of relationship the Buddhists of Bengal had with Burma can be researched. It is why? Because many traditional Chakmas of Bangladesh believe that the Chakmas came from Champaran in North Bihar, India. Hence, they are recognized as the original Buddhists, right? I mean, who are traditional Chakmas today? They believe that they are original Buddhists and they came from North Bihar. But scholars disagree at this point, and they say that here, for example, I have quoted one scholars writing, East Bengal and Assam District Gazetteers, Chittagong Hill Tracts. which says that Chakmas are mainly related to Arakhanis and the Shan province of Burma. And Leo First, who has written an archive here, an article, Chakma and Shak, internationally archive for ethnographic, mentions that Chakmas belong to the Shak or Thak community who lived in the border areas of Chittagong and Arakhans. Around the 14th century, they were displaced due to the political instability of that time, and many settled in the hill areas of Chittagong. Research work can be done by selecting such topics as the Buddhism and culture of the Shan province of Burma with the Buddhism and culture of the Chakma community of Bangladesh. History shows that Bengal Buddhism had links with Burma, especially Pagan Buddhism in Burma, Pagan area. We see this kind of relationship in the text or in the book written on Buddhism in Myanmar, a short history, and also a PhD dissertation, which was produced in National University of, I think it's in Australia. It's about Burmese Buddhist imagery of the early Bagan area. Then Niharanjan Rai's dissertation, I think he's one of the famous scholars, Bengali scholars, he was. And his dissertation is Sanskrit Buddhism in Burma. It was published in it was done in 1936, mentioned that Mahayana and Tantrayana Buddhism were once widespread Burmese pagans, and that Bengal Buddhism, especially Buddhism of the Pala period, influenced Burmese Bagans. Besides, there were social ties, intermarriage, and cultural exchange. That means between Pagan and ancient Bengal, particularly during the Pala period, there were social ties, intermarriage. They used to marry from one region to the other, and cultural exchange with the people of that time. Research work can also be done on what kind of relationship Buddhism of Bagan in Burma had with Buddhism of Bengal. Then we also see that Mahayana and Tantrayana Buddhism was widely practiced in Bengal during the Pala period. Bengali Buddhism also influenced Tibet. It is not unknown to everyone that Atish Dipankara, famous Buddhist monk and a scholar for went to. All right. So yeah, I'm coming to the conclusion that is in few minutes. So yeah, yes, was dominated in Tibet.
Share of the session. I'm sorry
Bengal.
for interrupting. May I request you, because we have little time left for you, so may I request you to finish your presentation within next 5 minutes.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. So let me make a summary here. Actually, let me read my conclusion. My presentation actually briefly discussed Buddhism in Bengal from its beginning to its present stage. And it highlighted how Bengali writers and researchers write about the history and tradition of Buddhism in Bengal. But my point here, there are still many layers of writing or researching on Buddhism in Bangladesh need to be done. It remarked that despite the many levels of research on Buddhism and Buddhist culture in Bangladesh, many are diverted from such research on what kind of relationship Buddhism and Buddhist culture have with neighboring countries. Those studying Buddhism can do research like a triangle shape Bangladesh, Burma, and Sri Lanka. They can take their research area. In addition to this, I believe that Bangladesh Buddhism and Buddhist culture will be prosperous in the country and the outside world if the research work is done on the relationship of Bengal with Tibet and how the Buddhism and Buddhist culture of Bangladesh or Bengal have been linked with many contemporary Buddhist countries such as Thailand, Myanmar, and Sri Lanka. Thank you very much for your time, and sorry for taking a long time. All right, this is the end of my presentation.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Vijay. Since we have little time left for discussion, and after that we can proceed to have other presentations. So I'm opening the session for any kind of question or remarks or any suggestion you have. I request Dr. Dipen to remain present so that he would respond to the questions or suggestions. Okay, we
Hello,
don't
I
seem
am.
to have any kind of questions from the side of audience. And as you see that Dr. Dipen, he highlighted the history of Buddhism in Bengal with its four dimensions, and he also underscored the development of Buddhism under the Islamic uh, period, and after that, the British period. And the most important thing for future literature is he highlighted the knowledge gap and what are the area the prospective researcher can move ahead with their research in relation to Buddhism in Bengal. So, as a chair, it is on my personal behalf and on behalf of the organizers, we are thankful to Dr. Vijay for joining us from University of Hong Kong to make his wonderful presentation. And with this remark, it is a privilege for me to request our next speaker, Dr. N. Jin Hoi, from Monash University, Thailand, who is present with us. He will make his presentation on handling multiple manuscripts of the same text, a case in critical studies of the Middle Punjab. So it's a pleasure for me, Dr. N. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to all of you. So maybe I should start here. attached to Mahindra University, the College of Religious Studies. So before I start, I'd just like to quote what Professor has said yesterday about the old system of one manuscript here, one manuscript there, and another manuscript wonders does not work anymore. Right? So currently, more and more manuscript has been published or catalog, and some of the images have been digitized. So we are facing with a lot more manuscript than before. Before it's like, if you can get one or two manuscripts, that would be fantastic. Now I will share with you my experience on that. So basically, I will give you a background of the text, a bit on their translation history, and also a bit on the manuscript that are being preserved in Southeast Asia, maybe. And then, more importantly, about the textual community's role. Then, lastly, I will give you an example of reading from the same family of textual traditions. Now, what I hope to convey in this 20 minutes presentation is that the textual tradition is the story, the narrative, or the style of text of the Pali text of Melinda Pantha has evolved to different trajectories. So it was first composed in the Northwest India around the beginning of the Common Era, and it has been translated in different textual communities. The second message I hope to convey is that each textual community may have contributed in its own way to the preservation and translation of the text. Third is, with the availability of the multiple manuscripts allow us to better understand how texts are being transmitted. Right? And finally, the benefits of reading some from other genre of text which has similar textual tradition. Okay, just a little bit of background on Melinda Tanham. It was composed most probably in Gandhari, and but this Gandhari version has been lost or yet to be found. Right? Therefore, surviving today in terms of the whole text is the Pali version, and we also have the Chinese version called the Nagashima, which is in class. Right? So the text basically are divided into the Panama data, the verses of homage, the past selection, and then the questions of the leader, and the data panel basically is the dialects of the text. Questions that which has double prompt questions basically. Alright, so we know that the Malika Nagasena tradition is reflected in multiple genre of text, just like Asoka. So here we have the Malika Nagasena tradition. It's reflected in Pali, as we know. We also have some observed in Sanskrit traditions, for example, in the Abhidhamma Kosha Manasya. Some quotations may not related to the Chinese edition, but they are mentioned of Nagasena in fragments. We have it survived in the Chinese which is Sutra, and we also have
And the rights are either revised or related to skills of people. That's why they have the Buddhist manuscript as a revised copy and it doesn't really right? But the science copy are not always the one that has additional content. Look at the science in terms of certain content that's more content compared to the data functions. So, in certain cases, the data extension has quoted the whole Sutta or Samhita Nikaya where the science addition. So, as for the science addition, you know that it comes from the section called the network extension. Popular in 18th centuries. Right? So for us, for my work is to find out how does these differences evolve. So with this effort, I kind of trace back and go back to the manuscript. So I have managed to trace up to 1,100 manuscripts all over the world. Especially I'm looking at manuscripts separated. And you can see a majority of the manuscript are kept in South Asia. So the most of them are kept in the National Library. National Library of Thailand is almost 300,000 manuscripts. Right? So even though in the catalog we only have one item, but inside of the manuscripts. And the question here is, are these manuscripts comes from a single example? How many insertions are there? And for me to do manuscript analysis, how am I going to select for this kind of group? Use them as reference. Because I have having 17 manuscript altogether and referring to them. So you can see here the data looking it spans almost 2.5 centuries. Right? For the internet conditions. So it has an opportunity to study the evolution. And we found that there are 3 essential separated, 2 much earlier and 1 even prominent in the 18th century. So how then through the textual tradition as well as direct formation, I have prepared to this manuscript and I have prepared to their respective textual traditions. And then most of some of the old manuscripts are not complete, therefore I need to some of them. So the priorities will be each manuscript, whether they complete, whether they start. So I just showed you 3 examples of this difference within this resection. Basically, you can see here the PDF editions always one of the essential certificate resection. And then the scientific edition incorporates the income section. And this is to show you that this is the middle one is the oldest manuscript, surviving manuscript. And this is the PDS edition, this is the scientific edition. You can see here the super printed by these 2 printed editions are different. So the first question we ask ourselves is this oldest manuscript the absence of other text due to Latina, or is it these 2 are later editions? Right? And if the later editions, why the editions are different? Does each section will be listed different texts which are more complicated in their textual properties? So this is another example, the last example showing you this basically the concomitant factors that arise in each consciousness. You can see here the PDS version is in agreement with Abdullah Sanana, and then the science version you don't have identifiers. So we ask ourselves, does this textual version has independent Abdullah Sanana, or it is something that is agreed with discussion and agreed. So the last thing I want to point out is that the beauty of the data matters of data. So we are working on this text for the last 1 year. We found that there are 4 key dialects in this article, and we have almost 30% of them dialects which are we are finally having error compared to the natural versions. They are interesting dialects like they address issues like whether the Buddha is communism, whether it has anybody gone to the Himalaya, or whether it is happiness and contact tell us that and topics like why is it that the mind is goodness? Right, so let's just give one example in the longer version, anyway, when the translator even find that is a bit obstructive. Example, he say that we can ask the Asata who is the Asata say that who is the road. And then we can ask if that's the case, then why would we go to the RPG how to get by class? So this article has he did the weather into my class. And then the so in the Sanskrit version, it keeps everything. You see that you can say why is it going to Abhijita by passing the because it is the Abhijita is looking at the the water. And then even the words connected things not about things. So now at least we know that it is something the same. Other class of the Buddha has some information also mentioned that has information. So in conclusion, just show you example of the kind of shots we can discuss more. The basic conditions of the test may have evolved to different categories. And when all the extra come into light, we provide us with the option to study the translation of this test. And this is the study. Various advanced chemistry might not have been understand the relation and we do not know what is going on. But it should be recognized that the translation of text is extremely diverse and go beyond just 2 words. So reading a basic condition of text preserves the language of the text. So the last one is that we underestimate the role played by the machine on the right. With that, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. and Jim. As you can see, that it was very well organized and the dish, which is masked all the variations available of the benefits of the human. And we discussed about the convergences and divergences also of the different manuscripts. In historical research methodology, generally we talk of 2 kinds of approaches which are called external criticism and internal criticism. And in external criticism, it becomes very important to identify the most validated and visible data of manuscript. And in addition to that, on the basis of the other data as well as the original one or most validated one, you proceed to examine the data available, and when you start examining the available data or the most validated source, then you will apply the rules of internal criticism, and after completing that process, your research is considered to be a completed one. Of course, in academics, any research is never completed, it's an ongoing process. So, applying all the rules of the research methodology, we realized that Dr. Bain has been dealing with the manuscripts of Bain Baino. And these remarks, it's difficult for me to open this session for discussion. If you have any kind of remarks, any suggestions, you are most welcome to make that. And the scholar is with us in this talk. Any questions? Yes, Dr. Manish.
Thank you very much, Vijay, for the wonderful and interesting talk. Again, I remember we discussed this in Pune as well. So, this one thing I want to know is you mentioned about something could you just switch research does it, some kind of art and similarly can also life on this versified also money. So what are the directions in which research again the first question is on the recession of this paper. If you look at the textual traditions, it is a bit more closer than to the Chinese recession compared to the textual tradition. I say closer, but not even because even though they have they do the same data, there are some differences in certain of the same text as well as the transcripts. And the Sankirtan has almost half of the content of Sankirtan is new content. For example, there are topics that are being discussed in the modern version. For example, why did they publish the Buddha has already appeared? So the approach, the answer given in this new version is and another thing is the omniscience of the Buddha. So the Buddha can actually this edition to the next edition of school. I cannot be only vision because there are two services. The second question is on the also I can say it's of course something that is untamed. What we expect normally is that it's a untamed of some larger work. So then you guess that there might be some other version of the version which something we are only having yes, because the preparation of all these they know that this is not the affection, the part of the and this part of the has quite a lot of differences. And what I suspect is that there's a date of that text which is about 15th century. So both of them are referring to the section which is different from the one that we have. So there are some researchers that they are there. So there's generally question. And they have a wide, they have also have some questions which are answered, but they have what is the then but they also have topics which are not found in the education. Why is it that uniqueness is so I know that perhaps those of those systems has a need to address certain questions which the community for money, at this moment it is that one science student did his PhD by translating it from industry to high streets and did live translation. But that has not been edited or translated. So at this moment, we acquire the manuscripts for that version, and this will be our next exam.
Yeah, there's one question in also address. So, are there any other examples of some paper where we see that additional is I was trying to talk about just that because we come back to repeating again that we need to study manuscripts. And look at manuscripts, they only have titles. So there are about 10 or dozen or more other texts in some paper. No one's and so it seems to be a kind of genre or class marker in time titles. I think they're only on that. And it seems to me, I think it's the Thomas Bowley. There is Pitara and some paper. Maybe Mao. People of them are presumably something. So we believe that's why we need people to study and explain these things. You know the title? Because people stop reading people scripts, stop reading the manuscripts. And there is no addition of the so-called Mahamasa has been edited in Rome and by extended now. But there is no time. He is but there's no time addition or study. So that's why we need research. And as for the Samadhi, actually there was an addition done in Rome by John Bali, that we 40 years ago. And this is my fault, I wanted to publish it. He agreed, and we had it put into the computer. Then there were some problems, this was 20 years ago. And eventually those computer files became defunct. And so it stands sort of that. And I thought this was very important because we do not buy maybe on like to rewrite text. So there is a Muhammad Samadhi universe. So I know that you study that. So the type like to rewrite and rephrase text by that's what I'm saying. There's so much to explore and accomplished charity to explore and depends on looking at manuscripts. So I'm not too excited if somebody said they're studying the chapter of Isuri Mother is the entire
set of essentials. Okay, let's look at this way. But it doesn't take us much further. So to go to the manuscripts. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this energetic presentation. Again, it was something. Some people is a kind of show. Let's not mention the technique. What is essentials we are following? See, so that's much. So that's like problem. Something you just take the earliest one which you are using, which is the point, because it seems that with the patronage, which had changed, there was the necessity to incorporate certain things for the readers which are not viable for this already there. So it seems in the scenario, maybe there is certain things that patron. So is it so that if this is so, then can we just wait on the text which are looking at, the text which are considered as we talked yesterday? In one of the versions, you get the point that there are ships which are traveling from Bangor to Kaptola and so on and so forth. So these are much later texts, you know. So in all the sentences, we can have particular consideration. This is a not fair, so we don't ignorance. There can be all of them roughly, you know, where they do, or at least a chronological arrangement of the answer. This is one. And the second one, which I would like you to highlight is that this particular text of became very, very popular. But that's why it gets so many versions of it in different countries. So, if you have a ratio with other example politics, how many, what is the kind of ratio of its segregation? This will help us to understand what is the kind of popularity which we have in from Ceylon to the whole of Southeast Asia.
Right, so the competitive text is on evidence. Even the originally from something like that, and what we talk about the tradition, it is kind of like similar, there's some similarity with I will not say that because so I will just stick to the things that we have. And secondly, about there's one question that I have that given something also another question whether the data was complete. So this question has not been addressed. The second one is about competitive. I don't have a comparison supply, but that's the first transition was kind of like the first presentation session was so hard for the past period. And we also look at the forms of the manuscript or then actually recycling what so there's a little bit of us which reflect the inspirations of the others.
Thanks for the great remarks of for the so I would like to take only one question for us. And the last question after that, also the next speaker managed to beat the same discussion who was supposed to join us online. So after this last question to close, this is a good question. Thank you very much. So I wanted to learn one clarification that what are the chapters in the Sankhya and we are quite aware that in there are only three chapters. There is no after only Lakshana Pahiyo, Vivati Pahiyo, and Veda Pahiyo. These are the only three chapters in the our Nath and but in the Pahiyo, we are having 7 chapters. And some of the scholars are clear that this Upayo, that is the Bhagavad Gita, is local originally in the middle of the year. This was inserted by some of the scholars. And there are some chances of our scholars that it was an idea of who introduced this Upayo or Bhagavad Gita. So I wanted to have your clarifications that we have a need for this that whether Upayo is the solution of the Pahiyo or whether it has been interpreted there. So in Ashkata, we are having so many chapters also. There is almost in Milinda, but in Milinda, there are many comparisons of the verses which are coming in all the 7 chapters of Milinda. So this is the average version of Milinda Pahiyo in Milinda, which has been tested by Padma and published by Politics Society also. So it is only a compilation of the verses which have come in all the chapters of the Milinda. But what are the main contributions of the Milinda Pahiyo? Then we are talking, this is also a average version of the Milinda. But what are the original chapters of this Milinda? If you are working on this, you can clarify. Thank you.
The Kuba yoga, yes, is recommended in the Chinese, have quite a very popular basis. That regards the new research. And I would say that we do not, I don't know where is it exactly this information. But I would say that we have gone back because different organizations of this also have even the national people say the differences is that the definitions of certain technologies. According to the Sankhya, most of the so-called parallel are coming from the Vedanta section up to a touch. So the Vedanta section will have 4 questions related to the and out of that, 3 of them the questions of whether the information of Buddha is support the sense of the Buddha and the questions of Nibbana exists. So these are also appeared in some data but in different. So it's kind of like a different perspective, explaining the different perspective. So here they have about these new lines. So the question of whether the yoga is original, is very difficult to say. Yes, we have all that argument and students out there. But I would say that that chapter is quite fluid. Previous session is
having this lively discussion, responding very well to this one of the questions faced by the leading scholars of the Parliament Buddhist presenting. We have two presentations in this session. First was dealing with actually leading culture of Buddhism, which is very long and which try to present a contour of its southern background and the possibility of the future resources in that. And second presentation was largely related with the manuscriptology and philology. And if you see the same rates of discoveries in the world, so generally, certain area if you like to define. So the first one area is where I mentioned that is where we talk of the digitalization of the text manuscripts and its interpretations and how the computation technology and artificial intelligence can contribute to the knowledge. If you talk of other areas, another area is interdisciplinary area where Buddhism has the potential to have dialogue with other streams of knowledge like sociology, psychology, neurology, different kind of different disciplines of sciences. And we can go further, so you find other dimensions of the same ways in which you can classify localization, in which people are doing the expertise of the living societies, especially in this types as well, in the different societies, and what kind of changes, what kind of integration is taking place in their life in the society, living in the different cultures, and how globalization has affected. And that impact of globalization and dialogue with globalization comes under the ambit of in this Buddhism also, if you recall the Occupy movement in the US in 2011, and which had started with this slogan at the same time that we had India, this collection movement in India. So Occupy movement started with the slogan, we are 99%. And on Wall Street and in many places in USA and after that in many places of Europe, the slogan wanted to emphasize that the entire wealth of the nation of the world is lying with 1% industrialist and big guns of the world, and 99% people are alive of those who have power and wealth. And we should keep living. And at that time, the biggest debate occurred among the Buddhist organizations of the world which were dealing with the social issues and which were engaged, so-called engaged Buddhists. So whether they should take part in that kind of movement or not. And if that, if they should take part in that kind of movement, so what should be the deal of it? And if it is done by the Buddhist monastics, so how much they should compromise with the Buddhist ideals. So this kind of debate has always come under the ambit of the dialogue between Buddhism and globalization. Another direction in which Buddhism meets and Buddhism has been facing the questions is related to gender studies. Not only women issues, but issues related with the LGBTQ community. How Buddhism or Buddhist texts are able to address those questions, and how much those texts from that Buddhist philosophy is compatible with the idea of their own identity of these minority communities in this world. If you go further, then other three dimensions are, if you want to say, the same things or contribute things. So the environmental studies is one dimension, and another is mindfulness. I mentioned yesterday that in mindfulness and because of the personality, what they did to study Pali language and Pali literature, they wanted to study Pali literature. So the mindfulness study not just confined to have a mindful living or walking meditation at all. If you see the data results of missions of United States or SPI researches, so a lot of researches have been applying to medical tools like MRI machines, the impact of mindfulness on gray pattern of brain and particle thickness of mind. So that is another dimensions in which things have been visited. And last, in which under which the research of feeling and the kind of researches which they were doing, some scholars are doing, that's under the kind of philology and manuscript. And that is most important aspect of any textual research because that defines the foundation of understanding of philosophy. The meaning of the word and its relationship and the different kind of the dimensions or manuscripts. So, what are the interrelations and how we should teach what they thought or what they thought. So, these different dimensions are being built in this conference, and two aspects of those dimensions of the sentence were built in this session. I'm grateful to the scholars for giving scholars presentations in this session. And these remarks, it's an honor to close this session with thanks again to the convener of the conference, proposal of the one, and other members of the department. And it was wrong after the session. So thanks a lot for having me in the session.
Thank you, sir. Very different aspects we are touching. Just a minute, sir. Students want to finish you because with this technical skills as well as with the online, offline mode teachers, she wants to advise for this one presentation. So, a small note, I'd like to put into the notice to you all that we take 5 minutes to make over this and we'll come to the next session. It's indeed was a fantastic explanatory and we do justice to the session of Professor P.C. Law. We will now come over to the next academic session that is dedicated to Professor V. Burwa. I would like to come up on the stage the chairperson, Professor Peter String, and rest. You see from there, okay. So, Professor Vimal, please come up on the dais. Professor Mahesh Devapaji, please come on the dais. And Professor Asana Devapaji will do the online. So we have 2 speakers offline and 1 speaker online today. And another speakers for this time, Dr. Virakari Abdullah from Tamil Nadu State.
Hello.
Session is over to you, sir.
I have no memories. Even the day before. Of course, some of the earliest books about Buddhist literature, Maori literature, that I read were texts, learned poems, and traditional texts. So it's a great honor to chair this session. First of all,
First, Vivek Kumar, then Bharat.
yes, so I think we start the session. And it's really for not what I'm because I found the acoustics there usually understand more than 13%. And my intelligence only allows me to understand another 10% of that. So that's why I have taken refuge down here. This asana is also called the Hinasana, where you sit and asana with the Mahasana. So this few words I'd like to request. So the first chapter is the practical study. Our special the next chapter. This is my paper. I was asked by this Chandrika of this conference to present what are the research trends on the conference. So I am going to present that what are the trends in our study. Both from
So this is our main topic. Let us discuss that how this Abhidhamma is started as a discipline for our research. As we know that Abhidhamma is the center of foundations of the country. It has been defined by Asana, the rules, as an excellent about the resources of the world. Not during the disease and we have control. There are three attributes of Abhidhamma for understanding the essence of the Abhidhamma. And it has three attributes. Is Parvat Jafathamma Sasana, and now Ukachikasa. Abhidhamma is Parvat in the sense that it is this is related to the whole years. The Pilar Parvat, very states of the Parvat. It gives the disease of the Buddha as they really are Adam. And through this, as they really are, it dispels the darkness of their brothers. All things are subject to impermanence, all things are subject to suffering, and all Bangladesh are subject to slowness. In that sense, this is the Yathathamma Shasana. And it gives the discourses related with the distances between the mind and matter that is now the group. It gives it the distances between the activities and the group. How there is distances between the mind and matter. The more real the distances have been given. There are five qualities of so these are the five attributes that Buddhism, Sarakara, these are the five attributes of the but these are the qualities of the religion. And we see that the third sponsors how there are classifications of and we can classified as from the third sponsors we are having clear classifications of the disease of the world. Before we are having public comment and we have there is a rehearsal of the with that. Okay, what are the sponsors? Okay, and we are having so coming to this research phase, that area or in Sri Lanka or in Myanmar, the phase of the research in Abhidhamma started. And it was the diachronic period who first of all wrote the Abhidhamma study in the 1946 or 7. Then he came back from India to Sri Lanka. After Second World War was over, then he composed this Abhidhamma study and the new investigations started. Has so many editions of this Abhidhamma study. There are more than 9 editions which have come out. The editions which was edited and it was given a exhaustive and he has given a more than 50 pages as an exhaustive production of the study. And he had analyzed that how I am going to create a study how is Abhidhamma study and started. How Abhidhamma studies discusses about the mind or the consciousness moments. First of all, the study starts with the consciousness and time. That what is the relationship between the time as well as the consciousness? First of all, that I will here is very important of the mind. That mind is plays a pivotal role in performing all the actions. And how all the performing actions is mind has the role and how the time which has the think Bhattavad and another how these three types of time and discuss it in that how it can be studied. So, because of the fact we did a very analytical study of this study. So first of all, we had discussed some of the points I will come that how this is the become study has been analyzed by our Buddhist. First of all, we discussed about that how the objects are organized by about the course of business, that how the objects are being organized and we look at matter concerns. Mind catches the object, matter catches the object. But there is a great relationship between mind and matter. So this the matters are being organized. There are selective moments which are taking place by the mind for catching one object. So mind is 16 or 17 times faster than our matter. So this has been started by Glycogen A. So how the research is started now is considered at the time with the role of the most of the business of the process of consciousness that is the activity it was started in the by Glycogen A. And how this is most of our business which psychology theory is actually discussed in the past. It has also played a great role in how our mind as associated with the matter, how the matters are being organized. Perhaps like Satyakranti how types of other concepts are playing role in organizing the objects. So I want to study discusses about all these things. Generally, my point is discusses that everything is related to everything. Everything is related to already. There is nothing manipulation and market are already. So I will here discusses that whatever the things or phenomena which are taking place in our daily life, these are based upon the cause and conditions that we can give and function. And he gives very detailed story of that. Again, in discussing about all the rules of the cause and conditions, he discusses about the mental psychic factors also. How the emotions are playing a great role in organizing the objects also. So there are some psychological states which are immoral as well as moral also. What are the all of the psychic factors? Because they are moral and immoral in playing the actions or whether it is visual actions or vocal actions or mental actions. So this 9 point where it discusses about all these things in a pretty deep manner. It is a very small book, but how the study is started after the Second World War. So it gives a very brief exposition of all these things. Then we discusses about the consciousness at the time, how things are already related with each other, and how the things are also nature and the environment, and what are the sacrifices which are very good in performing our actions also. How the moral actions and immoral actions, they are playing great role in performing our actions. Again, Acharya said, our it's very analytical study in the function of in the beginning, there are more than 50 pages, and it will analyze or summarize the research paper of in three stages. And in the first stage, he says that how we have to define the 5 types of aggregates, 12 types of disease, and 15 elements. If you have to understand the whole real estate, analyze the things by the way of question. So, this is that to understand the first, you have to give a space of foundation of understanding of the 5 types of aggregates, cases, and 15 elements. So, we have given in the instructions that how the whole that is the question are what is item and how they have been defined in a very detailed manner. In the second stage of analyzing this study by a method, it says that there are some factors or there are some immoral factors or other factors which are creating problem in the solution of the meditation. So first of all, in the second stage, he says that there is a need of removing the 5 types of environment. They will be found under their power in the challenge cases. And again, we are discussing about the big types of erosion and 7 types of Alzheimer's and 8 types of kilesas. So it gives a list of all these types of immoral or crime factors which are big problems in the path of concentrations. And first of all, we discussed about the virtual development and how this can be subdued. So it is then third stage, we could analyze that how these are studies can be understood in the country. So he says that this Bhogipakya is the base for understanding of the if you go through the other knowledge, we find that some of the persons who get close to the earth, so that and they put some of the problems to the earth, and when you are asked to explain who and what this is that whosoever understands this body, he can understand all the disease of the teachings of the country. So, in again, in some terms of we are at the beginnings of our team. There are some scholars who are of opinion that this body, which are disciplinary number, they are the beginning of the they lead the base of the number and the articles which are available in the Sutta or in the Madhurya Sutta or in Samalam Sutta. So the articles which have been placed in a statistical manner or in the form of the articles, they were the base of the development of the articles. So articles are the small points of the or features of the anchors which bigger ideas can be explained. So for understanding the article, talking about Dhamma, which are 37 in number, they are the base of understanding the four pillars that we require. Again, some of the scholars have analyzed that we wish to understand that because of the very understandable matter. Then it is necessary to go through the eightfold path. And this eightfold path, the essence of the eightfold path is the Bodhisattva Dhamma. And this Bodhisattva Dhamma gives you the real understanding of the four pillars that which is the path. That's what we have been discussing in the matter. Again, the later publication member of the written by or composed by our who both and before that we are actually member of the and before that CA is very as so a companion of philosophy and the debate chart and this is of they give understanding or researching or investigations in the field of industry. So this is how the understanding is started here. So these have been discussed in a very detailed manner. So Bhikkhu Bodhi gives the method of synthesis and the method of induction or understanding of the Abhidhamma. So this method of synthesis is a comprehensive understanding of the causes and conditions of all phenomena. So according to our young colleague here, it is complete description of the three requires besides analysis. So again, what we see in the four chapters, they have been analyzed with the 5 types of aggregates, Dwaras items that are in different parts. So we have been given a detailed and we are going to this. So how these total researches are going to be helping nowadays. So so there are some of the researches which are being done by Buddhist and also translated the Abhidhamma Sangho with the translation of Abhidhamma Sangho composed by Sundar. And in that way, he has taken a comprehensive analysis of all the opinions and how this method of the synthesis has been developed by Acharya. So this has been also developed in our translation of the Abhidhamma by Vijay Gandhi of Sri Lanka, Colombo. So these translations are giving insight for understanding of the world. And we have been figured in a very detailed manner. So now, as scholars, they are looking much at how this application of many people in our life. So first of all, if you go to so the chapter of is however, this is nothing but to believe that third chapter of the Supreme written by our Ashant Buddhist is someone unfortunately this which has been analyzed in our ninth chapter of the in a very detailed manner that is the Samatha Bhavana and the Vipassana Bhavana. And again, we see that how ladies are who have criticized this probably by Acharya Sumunda, but ladies are more influenced by the right chapter of that is the common Bhavana. And based on this common Bhavana, ladies are also come to Vipassana theory, which gives a great analysis of Samatha Bhavana and Vipassana Bhavana. So this is we see that how this which became one of the 9 members of the Dhamma, how this was much influenced by the religious scholars like Islam or Upakti also. So much has been also applied. So ladies are and other people, they are taking the teachings of the Dhamma in the practical way, in a basic way, that they are taking it in the form of Samatha Bhavana and Vipassana Bhavana. And in that way, that how mindfulness, Anapanasati or mindfulness is started, is also a part of our that is Abhidhamma Sangha, the four pillars, and this is our Bhavana, which is the 9 chapters. Again, it gives the 6 types of temperament, which have been discussed in the first chapter of Suddhimati Kamarkand Nidesa. So 6 types of temperaments which have been also discussed in our Sangha, and by later scholars like Dr. Gittin and our Vijayarthan. So these 6 types of temperaments are beneficial for understanding of emotions. These emotions, whether they are positive or negative, these are psychological states, or these are the mental factors or psychic factors. We have to control our negative emotions, and we have to develop our positive emotions also. So this is a practical aspect of this is that how we have to develop our this positive emotions, psychological states. So how this are related with our meditation and environment, we can understand that how the things are positive related, how the things are interrelated with each other. So this mindfulness, vipassana, samadhi, these are some of the things which are inside of the Dhamma. And now government of India has taken this to celebrate Dhamma. From the last year, government of India and other countries are also celebrating Dhamma Day. So in that way, the practical aspects, the main purpose of Dhamma Day is that how this teachings of the Dhamma can be applied in our daily life. How this can be setting in our removal of the wrong emotions, and how we develop our positive emotions. In that way, these are practical aspects. And recently, researches which are reported especially on the science of the mind, they are technical of that how these diseases they can help you. And there are more researches that there are more psychic factors than which are developing. But in other research, we are having more than 52 psychic states or good emotions. So how we can correlate, how can we step out of the this is the need of our with these words, I stop here my paper and I am able to organize a committee for giving me and to share some of the views. very much. Thank you very much for the very concise, lucid exposition. And now follow our next speaker. I think there's any introduction. I'm here from Korea.
Just a second, sir, with the permission of the chair, Dr. Virat Agrawal has come up here. Please come up with the next speaker here after my statement. Please do. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and my fellow colleagues from the Alliance for Television Party and others, and the members of the Department of Buddhist Studies, the organizing committee, and friends. I'm here basically to talk about a different field. Some of you may not find very interesting, but that's an important part of our literature. In fact, after economical period and the communal period, side by side, basically, the communal period, we see that the history of Pali literature is development of what we can call as Shastric literature. And the major part of that was composition of grammatical texts. The tradition talks about five major grammatical traditions. Bodhisattva, Vyakara, Sattvamanaka, which are now known to us, except a few traditions. And then three major grammatical schools, Achana, Upalana, and Patanjali. Out of this, Patanjali is probably more commercial tradition. So, even though traditionally it is equal to tradition, probably which is different from Achana, which is closely related. Here, there are two major schools of Achana and Upalana. They flourished probably began Achana specifically began in India, then had a very strong roots in Sri Lanka, and then further developed in Myanmar, and they had few, I think, developments in Thailand and Laos, but not much. Sri Lanka and one or two main countries where tradition developed. Now, if you look at this tradition, what we see is that it is first of all modeled after the Sanskrit grammar. It might replicate in a way the structure of Sanskrit grammatical treatises in recording in place. So, the one thing that we all know that Pali grammars are different from their practice counterparts, as they do not present Pali as language derived from Sanskrit. So they did not really explain the grammar Pali in terms of and following nations. present Pali as an independent language. So, I mean, Buddhists probably had this strong instinct of establishing themselves as an independent tradition. So they always have this very strong sense of identity. And Pali Grammarians, even though they follow the models of Sanskrit grammarians in terms of how to write grammar, but they presented Pali as an independent language. And therefore, what we see in Pali grammatical literature is that we have the text, sutra text, we have Vritis, Pali from Vritti, and then the further comment on the Vritti on Sanskrit and then the answer are Vanchikala. So we do also have in Pali the answer and Vanchikala. So these three tiered models which we find in Sanskrit grammatical tradition were replicated by Pali grammar. In the Chinese tradition, we find the Vritti as a and then the answer by the Vritti so I suppose we started in the 6th, 7th century and then in the 12th century, due to historical reasons, which are well documented by our friend Alistair Gordon in his PhD dissertation on Buddhist grammar, very active text how this new grammar of Malay occurred and what were the conditions leading that development. And he locates the new composition of the new grammar of Malay in the history of Sri Lanka and especially the developments taking place in Sri Lanka and in South India, where initially South Indian sunlight seen as bodies which are interlinked, but then by 12th century we see that it is not exerting their identity and normal presence that the emergence of grammar is the result of that quest for identity. So let us examine how because we need to understand also what we see in this tradition. That itself offers first with these and then it is not only an answer. This is also interesting. We look at some grammatical tradition of Ani, of Anand, of the Chakra. We see this 3 years of Ani, Sutra, the partners of Ashina, and then we have the aspect and the belief. Similarly, in Sanskrit tradition, we have Sutras, like the word and the poetry, and then the composed by the Islam, and then we have the Nyasa, or the so this replication is there. And what we see is other thing is that we also see that this happens in some grammatical tradition. We have 2 main fields of Arthakriya and Arthakriya. So the Arthakriya basically takes care of philosophy of language and try to see the relationship between word and meaning and how meaning is understood with the word. And then the philosophy right now basically looks into the derivation of process, how different word forms are derived. And we see that the Sanskrit tradition we have the text included. For example, in Pali tradition we have very contemporary text. In fact, it cannot be strictly called as Pali text. Initially, was that more affiliation with the Buddhist tradition and the Manichaean one. Many areas now considered followed by the late death and the rest. And then what we see And similarly, the following tradition, what we see is that apart from those common things, we have texts that, for example, in the Chinese tradition, we have a text called Kalita, I always say that, composed in the 11th century. And this text is very interesting because it's an old text, it's a text of about 100 stanzas. And part of it, half of it, basically subsidization of the Shadar, which is Maratha, and proposed by Italy's author, and recently, we have about 10 years. For 10 years, we have been working on this text. And initially, we had found the practically aspect of the text. And how to comment it called the ability, private objectives focusing on the Arabic section. And when we started taking this text, our ability to practice is where we have to comment. We know that we have to give it up. We cannot really edit the whole text because of some practice. And there were places that even censor almost an high accuracy. So, but we still try to do as much as possible in some cases. Until I believe in the middle of town, the one fine morning, that the Kalita text of the Masena, we have been able to with the Sanskrit text of the and then we started actually working with this text very closely. And with the help of the Pali text, it's a very interesting story that usually we find this in the Buddhist tradition with the Tibetan translation can help us to get in the Sanskrit text and vice versa. So similarly, what we discovered in the case of Shakara is that we could finish the gaps of the last part in Sanskrit with the help of Pali text of Kalita. And the Kalita also has with the help of these two texts, we could almost rescue the entire Sanskrit text of Shakara. So this is a new dimension which is coming up. Until now, we have been Pali text. We have to look at the Pali text. Probably is an tradition, and that's all. But when studying Kalita, we realize that the text of Kalita is very much with current examples. The Gita is has lots of models. It takes very complicated features and we repeat several times in both as part of the collection between minor texts of Kalita. But the text is problematic in both of these necessarily as it is anticipated. But now with the help of Shadar text, we will also explore some of the we can say that meaning of the Kalita text, where the Kalita text was given understanding. Similarly, we are working on the revision and translation of the Anshika. Another important thing is the Mogalana tradition. And we only have a single manuscript of it preserved in Sri Lanka, but actually is now lost. We don't know where it is, but it has a very fascinating history. So, Mogalana was first published in 1890 by Devamitha in Colombo with the Buddhi and and Devamitha at that time noticed the connection of this drama with the Pali and then in 1896, Ratnamani Namaran published the series sub-commentary on Mogalana and and then at that time, the Panchika was not available, and people thought that we don't have as Indians said, they keep fighting and then later on that I did ask me regarding your obviously the landscape. We can upload the student and for page 5. The another edited text in 1931 published in the region. But before that, in 1929, the Ramananda published the Bali Buddhi along with the Alpata and Kanapata text. And then in 1931, published the Bhagavad text. At present, we are working on to prepare scholarly edition. I call it scholarly edition because we don't have manuscript available. So of this text, what interestingly we have a single edition, it's very fairly done, and it shows that at that time, this early 20th century, the late 19th century, the Srinath scholars, they have exerted themselves to prepare excellent work of textual criticism. And then in 1923, following this single edition, when the body was from Burma, he prepared early edition of his text based on single edition. But as after we find some of these traditions, that there is something have a very clear critical apparatus so that we can know where we are, their modifications, we can incorporate the text. So, the early edition is quite confusing and it is not much better for scholarly purposes, where Ramananda's edition is still very much preserves the original readings of the manuscript, and wherever there are modifications or additions, Ramananda is very particular in mentioning them. Based on this, this is our three points of studies in India. After the philosophy, and and it's very interesting that 1940, the British culture published Pali Mahabharata in but it also preserves, it includes this edition, the Bali Buddhi and the Atupad and the Kanapad based on Ramananda's edition of 1989, and the Bhagavan text is certainly based on Ramananda's edition of 1971. So we see that there is a close connection between this word of Pali Mahabharata and Ramananda's edition. Then what we see is that the Tika published late 1954, we have an edition by followed by again Bali text published by 1958. And in 1961, we have the first edition of Buddhi that is also based on this early edition of once. But apart from this edition, there was no real study of this tradition. Now, what we find is that as Brahmins very closely linked to the Katanga tradition, so Bhagavan is very connected with the Chandra tradition. So Bhagavan sutras are based on Chandra sutras, Bhagavan is based on Chandra Buddhi, and so is Panchika. Actually, the Chandra tradition, we have three different Panchika of the Chandra sutras. One by Chandra, one of the created in Sanskrit form. Then we have a Sumati Panchika, which is available from Adam, that is research from the Rafari, who work with Professor and then the third is this Chandra Panchika, it's also available in the fragments in the different segments. And we have been working on this for the last 10 years now. So again, I'm going to be able to collect this for 1 year. Also usually together like police. And now we are working on the edition of this text. I basically work on the what is important is what I mentioned yesterday. That we need to work with management. We need to work with different states because these groups are relatively physically learning skills. So we need to make improvements in these skills and part of educating. And at the same time, since these words have both the meaning in the Sanskrit tradition of the counterpart, it's also important to learn Sanskrit as a Sanskrit grammatical tradition. So with this kind of preparation, one can really enter this field of acceleration. And I think that all of that. Thank you very much for your patience and thank you for participating for education. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's very important. Take that, taste it. I do not actually know the chair, and I don't know what to be asking questions after each paper. We have to have them at the end. So then we go straight to the next week. Also, please know introduction. He is coming from Canada via Udine. This is Professor Asanga. Introduction. Work in Buddhist studies and studies.
So good afternoon to everybody. Hope you can hear me. I say that because although I could hear sound, it was not very clear to me. So, but I hope I can be heard clearly. So again, good afternoon to everybody. Greetings from Pune, this time not from Colombo. I wish I had enough time to come physically to the venue, but I think that should be all right. It is good to be among friends and also great scholars. Chairperson of the session, Professor Peter Skilling, and also learned speakers and friends, Professor Mahesh Devkar and Professor Vimalendra Kumar and others. So it is good to be among you and to be able to share some ideas. my theme for this afternoon is some thoughts on the future of Pali studies. In fact, it can also be called some thoughts on the presence of Pali studies. So, it doesn't really matter. Why I wanted to share some ideas on this theme is basically looking at what is going on in the study of Pali field. Of course, my immediate experience is back in Colombo, Sri Lanka, the university system, and also the general education system in Sri Lanka, but also my limited experience with other parts of the world, and observing what is going on with Pali studies for some time. My reason for talking about this issue is basically, I would say, some kind of some kind of dissatisfaction, kind of agony, existential agony. So it is, this kind of frustration when I, look at the overall picture of the field, but it's not being pessimistic, but at the same time, looking at the past of the Pali studies and also what is going on presently. Now, for example, if you take a country like Sri Lanka, considered to be a Theravada Buddhist country, where Pali studies have been going on since the introduction of Buddhism, 3rd century BCE up to today. We know that if we take Sri Lanka as a kind of case study, with ups and downs during different periods, Pali studies continued in Sri Lanka. The substantial blow on Pali studies took place after the 16th century, when the arrival of Portuguese and, with the colonial, the powers. But interestingly, again, towards the end of colonial rule, particularly end of beginning of 19th century, towards the end of 19th century, it's kind of interesting. It is due to the same colonial powers that Pali studies started going to the world. So that way, sometimes, we talk about, the colonialism and colonial impact negatively and positively. But looking at what happened to Pali studies, particularly with Mr. Rhys Davids, and then subsequently end of the 19th century to the beginning of 20th century, where Pali studies was really almost tantamount to Buddhist studies. And then it was the Pali canon that was studied. So we can see that the Pali studies going to the world. But then if we go just before the Dutch period, we know that starting from 16th century, Pali and Buddhist studies went down very severely in Sri Lanka, and then subsequently in the middle of the 18th century, Asarana, Sarana, Saranankara Thera revived it, the Pali and Buddhist studies. So it was by the time British came to the country, we had the Pali and Buddhist studies gradually picking up. And then after about 5 decades, by 1850s, 60s, 70s, we see people like Hikkaduwe Sri Sumangala, and also we see the beginning of Vidyodaya and Vidyalankara Pirivenas. So there we see and resurgence of Pali studies. And subsequently, it was the Buddhist monk called Yatramulle Dhammaram, who taught Pali to Rhys Davids, from where he took the text and this tradition, academic tradition. Now, when I use the term academic tradition, I know that academic tradition was there in Sri Lanka, in the traditional Buddhist countries. But then in order to distinguish it from modern academic Buddhist traditions, now academic Buddhist traditions was there from the very beginning, but that was a study of Pali by the people who are inside and from insiders' point of view. However, this phenomenon of modern academic studies, we know that started with not necessarily you are a Buddhist follower of Buddhism, but of course it is more to the intellectual curiosity. Okay, but the interesting thing is towards the end of the 19th century and also by the beginning of 20th century, we had modern academic studies, particularly starting in England. But at the same time, we had a very strong local academic Buddhist tradition. Now, great scholars like Hikkaduwe Sri Sumangala, we know that he was reading English, and then he had this language knowledge. And at the same time, when we look at early 20th century, one representative example will be the edition of commentaries by a group of erudite Sri Lankan monks. Now, this Hewa Vitarana edition, Hewa Vitarana is the Anagarika Dharmapala's family name. So the funds came from Anagarika Dharmapala's family. And within 2 to 3 decades, all the commentaries were edited and printed. And these editions are considered to be very reliable editions. And although these venerable scholars who edited these texts, maybe all of them were not well versed in English language. But of course, that was not an issue because they were very well placed within their own tradition, within their own Pali and the Buddhist tradition. So we had a great scholarship. Now I say these things in order to contrast it. I mean, today you would expect with that background in Sri Lanka, people to be, those who study Pali, to be very familiar with using English language and some other languages and so on. However, unfortunately, this is not the case. So due to various social and political reasons, English education in the country suffered some kind of setback, although it has been picking up. As a result, we know that average university student who comes to Sri Lankan university to study Pali and Buddhist studies, their access to international language is very limited, I would say. So as a result, you can see that locally, Buddhist studies are very much confined to their own domains, and then it is not really I am worrying about not being able to go out, but even within their own context, I see some very often they are not really quality studies. Now, of course, if I may compare this with how it is going on in another, the strong Theravada country like Myanmar, Burma, you can see that in Myanmar, the Pali textual studies are very strong. Now, they follow very traditional methods, memorizing. So they are very good at memorizing. And also they are very good at commentarial interpretation. So I would say there is a very strong Pali textual tradition in Myanmar. But again, if you look at it from point of view of external impact, the impact is very limited. But traditional study is very much there, learning it by heart and then reciting it. I remember one time when I was just walking around, I heard this huge halabalu type noise from this Buddhist monastery. And I was a little bit curious, and I walked in to see that all the Buddhist, I mean, a couple of hundred Buddhist monks getting, together in this fairly large hall. And then they were reciting what they learned. So some are reciting Vinaya, some are reciting Abhidhamma, some are reciting grammar. So you can imagine the kind of, the mixture of sounds. But that's an example. So for the traditional learning has been very much there. But we have not been able to go beyond that. So locally, I would say Pali studies are taking place, but they are in a sense very much limited. But on the other hand, at the same time, you can argue that, okay, even though they do not reach out, if they are doing it very well within their own context, isn't it good enough? Actually, it is good enough. I mean, I don't have the worry about it. It is good enough. But very often, particularly when I look at context like Sri Lanka, I can see that even within the domestic internal setting, Pali studies are taking place, but not in a very sustainable or strong manner. In other words, everybody in the sense those who know Pali, and also the Buddhist monks, they know some Pali. Of course, they know how to recite and all that. But when it comes to whether they are really capable of reading and interpreting the text, then there is a problem. So in other words, what I'm trying to say to you is that Pali studies in local context are not all that satisfactory. And also when you look at the international scene, again, my observations are very limited. We know that there was a time when Pali studies was almost virtually tantamount to the Buddhist studies, particularly towards the end of the 19th century, in the beginning decades of the last century. We know that the Pali studies thrived in Western universities, particularly in England, and also in countries like Germany. And we know that subsequently what happened was, of course, economic, social, political reasons. I'm not saying again this is bad, this is good. But gradually Chinese Buddhist studies coming up, and also the Tibetan Buddhist studies coming up. We know that there are political and economic and social reasons behind these things, but whatever those reasons, we can see that gradually Pali study becoming one among many. At some point, it enjoyed some kind of privileged position, but then subsequently it becoming one among many. Again, please don't misunderstand. This is not some kind of nostalgic this thing to going back to those days. No, let thousand flowers bloom. Let the Buddhist studies in general branching off to various the linguistic and textual traditions is something very good. But the issue is, where do we have Pali studies right now? Okay, now trying to analyze this question, I think one question somebody can ask would be, why should we study Pali text, or for that matter, any other text? when you have your local translations, or when you have English translations widespread, and also local settings. In Sri Lanka, we have Sinhala translations. In Myanmar, they have Burmese translations, and so on. So one can ask, why do we have to, study Pali or any other? I mean, the question could be raised for any other tradition, but why do we have to study these things if the translations are there? Now, we generally say that, know that, of course, translations are not only mere factual translations. Translations are always interpretations. So one can translate the same text in several different ways. So therefore, generally we say that ultimately, you really have to know the original language. But at the same time, then the issue is, why do we have to have translations? Now, the idea is in order to popularize these studies, we are using translations. But then at the same time, we know that as teachers who are involved in teaching and research, we usually ask people to know the original languages if they want to do something beyond their bachelor's degree. So particularly when people come to MPhil or PhD, we ask them to do, original languages. But the issue is, now, why are there translations if they are not really ultimately useful? I think this is a question we have to face. Ultimately, we can say that there should be a situation where people should be able to study any text in their own language. Now, today, modern technology has devices to translate things. I think even the invention of those devices has the philosophy behind this, that ultimately you should be able to understand it in your own language. But we know that when it comes to these ancient textual traditions, the optimum situation is for us to know the original language. Now, in Buddhism, there is no prohibition, as all of us know that there is no prohibition for people to learn Pali. I say this because at sometimes, particularly in the somewhat traditional-minded monastic communities, I know in Sri Lanka there was a general belief that the ordinary householders, lay people, need not really learn these things. Let them rely on the monks who knew the language. I have heard there's a very interesting episode about Rhys Davids when he went back to England and started the Paritech Society, and he started publishing these things. We know that he did not have much financial support from England. So it is recorded that it is the Buddhist monks, particularly Buddhist communities from Thailand and also from Sri Lanka, then Ceylon, who supported. The episode is that when Rhys Davids expressed his desire to publish these texts, actually his own Pali teacher, Yatramulle Dharmarama Thera, did not approve of that idea, because he thought that that is not something to be spread all around. But at the same time, there were other groups of Buddhist monks during that very same period who thought that Rhys Davids was doing something great, and so therefore they supported him, financially. So I would say that within the Buddhist tradition, there is no, as all of us know, there's no prohibition of knowing the originals and prohibition of reading. But as always the case, we know that not all people will be experts in the original languages, so they will have to depend on. So many will have to depend on some for expert guidance. So in that sense, we can talk about Pali studies being popularized, but still we can see that there will be a natural gap, although not theoretically it is not prohibited, but still there will be a gap. So when we look at the picture of Pali studies, we can see that in the traditional settings, Pali studies is still being done as a traditional requirement. And then in the academic world, particularly in the modern academic world, I know that due to, again, for various economic and other reasons, Pali or Theravada studies do not get as much support, as much openings as, say, Chinese or Tibetan studies. Now, so therefore, consequently, you see less and less Pali studies internationally. Of course, that doesn't mean that they are not there, but compared to other forms of Buddhist studies, less and less, Pali studies. But then here I am not really trying to explore ways and means how to popularize it, but I am more what would be the need for real Pali studies. Now, I would like to propose, suggest one thing will be we will need Pali studies so long as people are, individuals or some groups are interested in the message of the Buddha as it occurs in the Pali tradition, which is considered to be the oldest available, accessible textual tradition for Buddhism. Now, again, we know that there is a tendency for translation. Excuse me for a second. Okay, I did not. I thought it's half an hour, but okay, thank you. Okay. Sorry, I did not know that I had taken that much time. So we know that the Pali studies, from that point of view, we need to have Pali studies basically as a need arising from our religious context. Of course, it can be combined with academic context, but of course, basically, if you want to know the message of the Buddha as it occurs in the Pali canon, which is considered to be the available oldest canon. So then to know it as clearly as possible, we can see that Pali studies are needed. Pali studies will find a stable place. And to brief, my second point would be ultimately what will be the globalization imperative with regard to in the context of Pali studies. Now today, although we can talk about Pali studies in particular places, we know that Pali studies and the Buddhist studies are happening all over the world, and also particularly in India. Today we know that there are many Pali study groups and also the departments and the universities specializing, showing a renewed interest in Pali studies. But the point I would like to make is, if you take globalization and the globalized context seriously, I think there is a very important need for those who are engaged in Pali studies also to look at the global interpretation of, interpretation of Pali text by the global community. What I'm trying to say you is something like this. At the time, we depended on the commentaries of, the ancient Buddha Ghosha commentaries. We depended on also the teachers who are coming from meditation teachers, coming from the Asian countries to the West. That was the usual procedure. But today, we are almost at the end of the first quarter of the 21st century. We know that today, due to the globalization forces, we have Buddhism or interpretation of Buddhism, understanding of Buddhism, which can be called globalized. Now, the experts of Buddhism are not only the traditional teachers from Asia. There can very well be the teachers and interpreters of all Buddhist texts, particularly Pali Buddhist texts from the West. So therefore, I think it is not, the case is not like things coming from Asian countries to the West, right? But today we can see that things being, going from West to the Asian countries and from Asian countries to the West. So this mutuality is something very, very important. I will wind up by giving you a very briefly example. I'm sure many of you have heard Venerable Jnanavira, who came from England to Sri Lanka at the fourth and fifth around decades of the last century, and he became a Buddhist monk there, and he is known to have attained some kind of Maggapala, Sotapatti Magga. So, but at the same time, the way he passed away by committing suicide, there is controversy hanging around his life. But the point I would like to highlight is that in his notes, in his extensive notes, among many things he proposes, he also proposes a way of understanding the doctrine of Paticcasamuppada. Now, this Venerable Jnanavira's understanding of Paticcasamuppada is quite different from that of Venerable Buddha Ghosha, according to whom Paticcasamuppada has to be understood as belonging to past, present, and future. But Venerable Jnanavira's interpretation was Paticcasamuppada to be understood as something pertaining to the present moment. Now, the interesting thing is we know that actually, personally, I don't have time to go into details. I think that both Venerable Jnanavira and Buddha Ghoshian interpretations are both acceptable. But the interesting thing is Venerable Jnanavira coming to Buddhism anew and giving this interpretation is found to be acceptable by a good number of people within Sri Lanka and also within the Buddhist world. So now this shows that interpretation and understanding can go not only one way, can go on both ways. So therefore, again, to come up my theme, some thoughts on the future or the presence of the Pali studies, what I would like to think is actually Pali studies will continue, if not for anything, at least for those people who will be interested in understanding on their own the original text, maybe mainly for the religious reasons. But at the same time, Pali studies, there are emerging signs that Pali studies are being picked up by people for the Dhamma reasons and also for the linguistic reasons. And I will wind up of these remarks, and I'm sorry if I took more time than allocated. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
afternoon, valuable academic members of the university in the center. My name is Rhoda Kari, and I'm the chief master of the Madhya Meditation Center in Myanmar. The reason why I am here is University of Honorary Doctorate degree and currently to present ways to manage grants of program by non-technical knowledge. My meditation center has been established since 2015. More than 300 employees are now in the center. I meet their daily needs, both physically and psychologically. I have to accept everyone without marking and healing, whether they are good or bad. Today, I would like to present you how to solve the problems by means of cause and effect and the factor of ways to manage what is our problem by analytical knowledge. It is definitely important way that fall over to. For this reason, I strongly believe that by paying full attention and absorbing you will find my research more effective. As part of my research journey, because I did not pay attention and absorb what the teacher taught when I was in university. Me and my associate got in trouble in the theoretical world. Later, I realized that most of the problem and I related the nature of suffering no calm as the blessing. Since then, I'm probably paying attention and absorb not only for me, but also for myself. I have arrived to a stage where I could create this success not only for me, but for everyone around me, and became a very valuable person. After my university life or as a housewife, I noticed that the social, economic, and health problems are faced not only by me, but by everyone. To handle these problems, I decided to help, not just for my family, but for everyone as well. I compare the two different causes, the cause of suffering and the cause to solve the suffering. That is why I practice meditation in 2002. I try to master the teaching of the Buddha, practice meditation and apply them on daily life. I use my apartment as a meditation center. Later, I established this Bhagavad Center in 2015. I would like to present how I rapidly solve three hard circumstances. Firstly, nowadays we face the invitation of the COVID-19 pandemic all over the world. That is the most difficult situation in which the breastfeeding on the young mind is hard to release. This causes people to get shaken in their daily life. In this situation, I find my mind to be more stable and gain inner peace by abandoning anxiety. Therefore, I I coach and raise everyone in hardship by providing full support. We could overcome this starting maybe by practicing meditation together without having to exit our heads. Secondly, political crises are mostly faced in every country in present day. Why do these crises occur? First, the root cause of these crises is lack of knowledge and education to assess current situation. Second, so many problems caused by intestinal, sexual contact, by rates and by rates of anger and hatred. At the time, I have trained my mind internally with powerful loving kindness, which would overcome anger, dislike, hatred, and praise, and with compassion. Since I have attained inner tranquility, every external conflict and is solved by loving kindness. Thirdly, we face the economic crisis. Our banking system where is all cash, but not be wrong. However, the percentages that I have practiced daily, the power that can solve both physically and mental problems of those who take mental shelter. Even in that situation, I never thought of taking a step back, to protect my support of them. In such difficult time, I not only want to choose to us, but also support physically, numerous families, and teach the family on how to solve their problems themselves. I have meditation the conversation in my destination. Although meditation master taught us to be we could not remain stable when we need the essential object that cash. The reason for that is stability in asana, or anger, capacity, which refer to yoga, deity, and om. The function of asana is resting object and make the mind to be intoxicated. When we realize the true nature of asana, I would like to share Buddhist understanding, friendship, etc. of each factor. Thus, the nature of yoga is exactly to press or follow the essential of object. I will not that law for second, after following the essential object, the perception of seeing, hearing make us to have one, two, deity. I only saw a deeply that law deity. 3. This is because the function of moha is covering the true nature of these objects. Anak about the sadhana moha. Okay. Now we know the causes of problems. What is your opinion to solve these problems? Here, understanding the cause that can cause suffering is known as Margaret's condition. When we know the nature of yoga that grabs or follows the essential object to solve the problem of yoga. We have to cultivate samadhi. The perception that we memorize has been diluted by the wrong view. It is such a kind of big and we could see the challenge 80 in Santana, Shanghai. The consequence of characteristic conditioning, manifestation, and process of these three is correct. Not to follow Fridays essential objects, we have to focus on anapana, that is, silent analysis by means of mindfulness and effort. Although you apply Satipatthana by mindfulness, sati, and effort, do you think she will easily get concentration on you without having attended to success? And systematic effort cannot achieve what we want. When we apply effort to our way up to condition that must be feelings. If we today, we will be told. If we make extreme interval, we will be restless. That is fine. Our effort must be right effort somehow or another to attain the right concentration. This is also the Mahati Samhita because by only doing Samudhyadhyasa section, that is the cause asava. It is on the right way metta. It is in the meaning of looking into. What is the benefit of attaining one concentration? One concentration makes our mind stable. And the stable mind becomes unified. In this situation, the essential object that reflect in our mind can be seen. This can be also called Bhojana, Samsana. Here, I would like to give an example. Minds and ego have their different racial characteristics. However, there's some method of changing and dissolving and identifying. These three characteristics, nature, loka, and neta, are samaya. We must understand both samaya and bhava. Herein, we must analyze the five every day. We can understand they are samaya by dividing those five every days. The everydays of material form has the characteristic of changing. The everyday of sensation has the characteristic of being essential object, etc. On the contrary, by gathering all everyday, we will see there are some reality. This is the nature of Sankata Dhatu, condition and end. Understanding the position of Sankata Dhatu is Asankata Dhatu and condition and end. Knowing both Sankata and Asankata is possible constantly. Sankata is compound sector. Asankata is neural sector. In terms of lower truths, penetrating these two truths is automatically done. When we are conscious of the sound, Satyarupa, the two lower truths of cause and effect are comprehensively and penetratingly understood. consequence of us and no us is the same. We can differentiate whether it is occurring or not. We will determine what is synthetic and synthetic. We will label what it is and understood the nature of Loma and attending that condition because I am aware of that suffering caused my pain. Focusing oneself makes more anxiety. That is because of selfishness. We will be delighted to abandon all selfishness. Wholesome Ponya Dharma leads to glory. This is Dharma. Changing our habit leads to Sita. What is changing? I am giving of the bud, abiding egos and practicing work genes. One day, wholesome mind and minds. When we perform wholesome deeds, because sensual objects are seen to make us happy. The time we notice that even sensual objects is suffering, we will ignore all sensual objects. It is small, little mind. The consequence of abandonment of attachment makes samadhi. When we gain tranquility by samadhi, realizing the form of virtue is wisdom, ignorance. In the world, problems are caused by lacking of analytical knowledge. Only the wise, with analytical knowledge, can solve the problems. I made up my mind to make and deliver, not only for me, but also for my society. This is Vriya. We need to tolerate essential objects, whether they are desirable or indesirable. Because of the tolerance unity, we can avoid some rectify our mind. Abstaining by means of motivation. We say we without exception is sexual body and shakable. And shakable practice with knowledge and creation of the form virtue is adhikana. When the sign and image that we recognize are described by the Nessa Sanya as the animosity akata. Animosity is described it can lead to wisdom. Generally, we are attached to desirable and indesirable objects. And describing attachment and jealousy leads to extremes. And we have to take leaders ignorance will become jealous, fulfill 10 perfection by to be an open-minded person. That is, practice the four foundation mindfulness to lead to purification. That is, make a firm to state the mind from the bondage of divine lands and support those who are in the bondage of divine lands by loving kindness, nature, and compassion. This is sublime living. We're not Sharia. This is the end of my presentation. Last but not least, you all are cordially invited to come and practice at the meditation center of our mind. May all be free from desire and anxiety. We have tranquility of mind by cultivating loving kindness on all living beings. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's very inspiring. Not only your experience, one thing I always say is very happy. So I think that is your last speaker today, and we have about 5 minutes for questions. We impose any order. If you have a question, please make yourself known. Please be brief. Identify yourself as a single question, something too complex. Clear question. We now open the floor to questions.
Session is open. So do you have any queries? If you have, please place your queries before the speakers. Yes, otherwise we'll go to the next session because it's so clear and it's so understandable that I think it will be more explained. So we have a short thing to place before you. Please bear with me as something, some surprise for us. So Dr. Kumar is standing here, and Ms. Devkati has come down here to give that surprise to the Department of Buddhist Studies, headed by Dr. Kumar. So we are waiting for that surprise, a very small gesture, what a wonderful thing, Devkati. Please come. Please.
Thank you very much. I would also like to invite the stage. Yesterday we spoke about the dictionary project we have started 3 years back. In fact, that is earlier my UTC project, which is now the name of the dictionary of research in Paris and Chinese. And I would like to offer this to Marathi, 5 passengers, they will be and accept this and audience. Also, we have wonderful offer have because there are different facilities.
provide some school equivalents. And everywhere we have citations also there in Chinese. And it is done in also what we initial proof as a close by Romans now comes with Devanagi and so those particulars of this studies are important. It's very important to have visually study and considering different traditions of Buddhism. So the dictionary is also available as the department of finance and so now the whole set is take care of it. And the dictionary is also available so if one can contact the one can contact the department so thank you very much. And I hope that this helps the study of this here in the company university or in our tradition. We wanted to give something back to the institute and the colleagues here. Thank you very much. And we hope that our students hopefully all invite understand this so much of this okay. And if there are any comments, please send it to us because we are in publishing in messages so that if there are some upcoming suggestions we will incorporate them
So as there are no more queries, no more questions, so we will end the session. So now it's time for lunch. We have all our lunch visits. And we requested all the dignitaries and delegates to come to the teachers' room. We are going to lunch is having here and the rest are going to the lesson. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.